Shameless is a show about addiction, about poverty, about family. It's a show about whether kids born into the worst situation can ever really get out of it. And it's a show about whether change is really possible.
The ghetto girl thinks she can live the American dream, huh?
From its very start, in the opening montage introducing us to the characters, the show plays on how each of us navigates our best and worst selves.
Lip, smart as a whip, straight A's in the honor roll. Boy's definitely going somewhere.
How we have great potential within us, wrestling with the bad habits that tend to dominate more of the time. Shameless's alcoholic patriarch, father of 6, Frank Gallagher, is introduced as the addict of the show.
Alcohol is a gift.
Yet it emerges over time that Frank and the kid's mother, Monica, are not the only addicts in the Gallagher clan. Every character we grow to know and love is also in some way addicted to something, even if for some of the characters it might take us multiple seasons to pinpoint exactly what.
We're all addicts, Fiona. Just trying to fill a void. Some of us are just better at hiding it. Right?
Over the seasons, the kids struggle not to become more and more like the parents who disappointed them. As the system is rigged against them, their environment constantly pushes them down, and they resort to destructive, self-defeating habits to cope.
You're Frank's kid. And this is your first felony bust? Getting a little late start for a Gallagher, aren't you?
As we watch them try and often fail to overcome their repetitive self-sabotaging behavior, Shameless shows us how difficult and rare it is for people to truly change. The show itself is a soap opera featuring lots of continuity and repetition from week to week and season to season, and while we're hooked on the show and can't look away, we also get frustrated and mad at the characters for not being able to break out of these cycles. Then, just when we start to give up hope, the show encourages us that even after many false hopes and many failures that seem like rock bottom, change may still be possible. It's important to rise up again after each fall and to keep the faith, even if everyone else has given up on us, that we can fight our inner demons and become more our better selves.
I know I haven't been the most exemplary father for the past 3 or 15 years. But now I'm going to need your help to get through this. From this point forward, we're going to be a family again. What the hell is that?
Shameless is a story about addiction that is also addicting. So in this way, it achieves that golden ideal of fiction storytelling, synchronicity of form and content. It uses soap operatic romances and cliffhangers to keep us hooked on the show in the long term. And within each episode, it's full of audiovisual techniques that recreate the sensory experience of mind-altering substances, trying to make us feel a high from the inside. Shameless mirrors the feeling of a buzz through its frantically cutting editing style, its shaky camera, the hectic choreography of its scenes, and the loud, adrenaline-fueled music. As Trainspotting told us,
people think it's all about misery and desperation and death and all that shite, which is not to be ignored. What they forget is the pleasure of it.
Shameless also understands this truth about addiction. In addition to pleasure, addiction is about escape. Frank lives a life that is wholly escape into the pleasure of intoxication. He's the unrepentant addict. He rejects the need for anything but escape.
This is not a dictatorship, Fiona. This is America. Give me liberty or give me meth.
To him, that free feeling is living, and there's nothing worth giving that up for. Frank's commitment to his drug of choice, alcohol, goes far beyond his basic physical need. It has shaped his entire philosophy of life.
Thanks for the liver, kid. Here's to you.
Like a reincarnated Dionysus, Frank believes that life is only truly lived or worth living if we reject the tyranny of sobriety and get a good buzz on.
We may not have much, but all of us, to a man, knows the most important thing in this life. We know how to party.
Every time a real crazy drunken adventure begins again, whenever he's able to lure one of his family members to join him, he's free and he's happy. These are the moments he lives for. Yet while the show is periodically immersing us in this good feeling of highs, it also includes us in the come-downs and the aftermath. We see the devastation Frank causes his family.
My mother's bipolar, and my father's an alcoholic and an addict. He takes what he pleases and he offers nothing.
We feel the anger of his dependents who watch the addict endlessly repeat bad behavior.
My spirit is like a cockroach. It can't be crushed.
When we're first introduced to Frank, we see him through Fiona's eyes as a no-good father who uses his children and would make life better if he just left them alone. But now and then, in moments, we start to get seduced by his worldview.
This is the best place to shout at God.
We start to wonder if he doesn't sometimes have a point. Wouldn't any of us be tempted to escape from a hard daily reality like this?
Every day's an opportunity you don't get back, so don't blow it working.
And we enjoy Frank's resourcefulness. He reveals a level of intellectual ability that makes us suspect that if not for alcohol, he could have been a very successful man.
You can't go teaching equality and then get your human rights panties in a bunch when it comes with a couple of wedgies. Every asshole is entitled to his beliefs. That's the yin and the yang of democracy.
Over the seasons, Shameless manipulates us to switch back and forth in our feelings about him. Even at Fiona's wedding in season 6, we're echoing his children's annoyance and wishing he'd go away.
Frank!
Until he suddenly throws us another curveball. He's the only one who knows the truth that Sean has started using heroin again.
Oh, he's a junkie through and through, your husband-to-be. I'm surprised we're not better friends, Sean. We have so much in common.
So a key part of the show is constantly pushing and pulling us toward and away from Frank, winning us over with his philosophy, only to remind us again of the manipulation and abuse he's guilty of toward his family.
How did I get cancer?
You must have caught it from Grammy, son.
So Shameless will never allow us to resolve this ambivalence toward the addict, just as his family feels both love and disgust for Frank. Frank's drinking spurts are far from the only buzzes we experience on the show, and we start to realize he's not the only character who's indulging in extreme pleasure and forms of escape.
Because every single one of them reminds me a little bit of me.
We're increasingly sure that Fiona is some kind of addict too, though it's not immediately obvious what exactly is her drug of choice. First it seems to be sex or new relationships with men, then specifically Jimmy/Steve, then briefly drugs, but not really. Eventually the show tells us that her true addiction is to chaos.
You're a chaos junkie, Fiona, and I'm a junkie, so I love chaos, and when I get into chaos, bad shit follows.
Given that Fiona has rarely experienced anything but chaos in her life, it makes sense that she's more comfortable in the flow of dynamic disorder, and that she has no idea how to maintain the stable, somewhat boring consistency of a more healthy routine. She's never seen any adults give her an example of that. In season 4, Fiona seems to be making steps toward a secure life. Her sales job has benefits and a 401k.
What's a 401k?
Your retirement savings plan. You're eligible to participate. Every month you deposit part of your salary into your 401k and the company matches it, tax-free.
Deposit part of my salary?
But at the end of that season's first episode, Frank returns, and Fiona's face on seeing him feels like it's not just about him, but maybe a little bit about her. That the symbol of her father and his presence back in the house is a reminder that her fresh new office life can't work and can't last because of who her father is and how she was brought up. And sure enough, 2 episodes later, she's cheating on her boyfriend and boss, Mike, with his brother, even though she doesn't seem to want to do any of this. Instead of addressing in a mature way that perhaps she doesn't want to be with Mike, she launches into harmful actions that will both hurt an innocent party and blow her shot at the best job she's ever had. The Fiona who in early episodes seemed to always be right when it came to her family soon puts Liam in the hospital after he accidentally ingests her cocaine. We can easily imagine the younger Fiona using this kind of story against Monica or Frank.
It's a tragedy when a young man ends up behind prison bars.
Bad parenting.
Oh, don't blame yourself.
Lip is likewise hooked on some form of chaos. He seeks out hijinks that carelessly risk the special opportunities that have been given to him thanks to his smarts.
You stop behaving like the world is out to get you when it is so clearly dropping gifts at your feet.
He's also addicted to falling in love with women who break his heart, and he's addicted to alcohol.
Drinking it turns the volume down. Makes the world more tolerable.
As we see him getting in his own way, we worry that he's following in Frank's footsteps.
Frank says you're drinking too much. You think that's true? I don't want you to end up like Frank, okay?
Lip is the Gallagher with the most obvious chances of success, so it surprises us at first to see him becoming like his father. But though we sometimes forget it, Frank is also a very intelligent person, almost at times something of a genius.
Now, we have long been wrong, and it's time for legislation that allows our private parts to be aroused by the people God intended to arouse them.
At the end of season 7, Ian realizes that his relationship with Mickey Malkovich has become unhealthy and has to leave it behind.
I love you.
Then get in the car.
It's not. This isn't me anymore.
Just as Fiona eventually has to acknowledge by season 5 that Jimmy is a bad influence and addiction for her.
You ever think about what would have happened if you ran off with Jimmy Steve?
My life would be a non-stop psycho thriller. I definitely dodged a bullet with that one.
The show paints the addiction to self-destruction as a Gallagher tendency to work against themselves.
Seriously, I don't mean to be an asshole. It's just genetic.
But it's not really that the Gallaghers have inherited some gene to get in their own way. It's nearly impossible not to be influenced by childhood experiences. And Frank and Monica were the only examples they grew up with.
I was chased from my own house, and now I'm hiding in yours. Holy shit, I'm you.
It's significant that Frank opens the very first episode by declaring,
Nobody's saying our neighborhood's a Garden of Eden. Hell, some people say God avoids this place altogether.
While his point is that the south side of Chicago is no paradise, the phrase carries connotations of a place before sin, a paradise before the fall from grace. And so the statement is telling us that this is a story about people who never had that moment in Eden, never had a childhood where they could be blissfully unaware of the real world, even for a few years.
I'll put in any?
You're almost 9. You're gonna have to start pulling your weight.
These kids were born knowing just how imperfect adults were, and from the start they've had to make the best of a world that's highly messy. Over time, as they grow up, they have to deal with the unpleasant reality that they too are messy and imperfect, and they can't shake off how much they've been shaped by coping with their own parents and experiences.
You gotta let kids learn for themselves. The best gift you can give? Neglect. Neglect fosters self-reliance.
As the show goes on and the other characters become more and more like Frank while trying not to be like him, they all show tremendous promise, talent, and charms, taking steps forward only to periodically fall off their respective wagons.
That's the Gallagher sperm. Ambitious, relentless, everything we're not once we're born.
In a traditionally structured movie, the protagonist learns from their mistakes within an hour or two and changes irrevocably. Television is more like real life than the movies in this respect. Real-life people often need many chances and do-overs before we can really change, if it happens at all. And even if we manage it, we might still relapse into bad behaviors. Long-running shows like Shameless have to fill up many episodes, and this show ends up being ultimately more about how people don't change most of the time, how they disappoint us when we want them to change. We share in the frustration the characters feel towards themselves and each other.
The minute you kids start following Frank's example is the minute I put a gun in my mouth.
In Shameless, it's a false expectation that we want these kids to somehow rise out of the abusive environment they're raised in and become rich, happy, healthy, fully unscathed adults. We're used to seeing stories where the poor, difficult childhood is prologue to the story about exceptional people rising out of adversity. But Shameless is about how people continue to live in the midst of that adversity. The exhaustion of the not changing also gives us a sense of what Fiona experiences as the head of this household. There is never rest, never quiet. The show, like Fiona's life, is constant noise and repeating the same cycles all over. Money buys people quiet, solitude, and space to themselves. And this is exactly what the Gallaghers don't have. The opening credit sequence emphasizes this hectic yet beautiful chaos of so many people sharing the same space.
This house is so quiet.
Kids, breakfast!
And like Fiona, we take pleasure in those moments when the family somehow works and manages to hang together as a dynamic unit. But we also come to emotionally understand her desire for the occasional rest or escape, an end to the cycles of noise and chaos. Over the seasons, we tend to lose our faith that the characters will really change their behavior, just as the people we know in real life very rarely do change, at least not when and how we want them to. But then, just when we think we know these people to the point that they're entirely predictable, a character will suddenly surprise us. When we least expect it, they do change, even a little. And that moment of unexpected change is the moment we fall in love with them. These little glimmers of surprise after long stretches of repetition reinvest us in the show. We start to even like Frank now and then when he doesn't act the way we expect him to and defies all that we think we know about his character.
I don't get it. The sudden interest in my happiness?
But Fiona's story is the most powerful example of the progress that we root for. Fiona personifies the determination and will of her family's future, so we look to her especially to choose the best way forward, however many times she messes up and has to start over. Meanwhile, as Fiona tries to better herself, we see that this too isn't as straightforward as simply being reliable, responsible, and trying hard. She has to take some gambles, because the world isn't set up so that someone in her situation can improve things just by working and staying the course.
When you're poor, only way to make money is to steal it or scam it.
Even more challenging than personal change is generational and social change. The characters on Shameless have all of the odds stacked against them. But the show argues that we have to forgive ourselves and the people we love for not always being able to overcome those impossible odds. Most importantly, we have to cling to our hard-earned personal progress and do our best to drown out that self-defeating voice within us, telling us to throw it all away.
No love lost, huh? It was an eventful childhood.
Hey guys, if you like our videos, you'll definitely like the stuff our friends at Wisecrack are making. We genuinely love their work. Their videos about movies and TV are smart and insightful, as well as very funny. One of our personal favorites here at Screen Prism is the Philosophy of series, where they talk about the underlying philosophy of your favorite shows and movies. The philosophy of Black Mirror is a great one to check out. And they've got a really interesting new video on the anime series Berserk, where they talk about the use and philosophy of overdone violence in the series. Their videos are generally just going to blow your mind, so you should click on this link to head over to their channel and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and if you like our videos, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just click this link here. We spend a lot of time making these videos, and every little bit helps. And of course, the very best thing you can do is subscribe to our channel to get access to all of our latest videos.